We are back once again with another Reaper polyhedron adventure. This time we are doing the D20. Already covered the D4 a little while ago, which is also why this video is going to be a little bit on the short side. Apart from the main body, this is painted the exact same way as I did the D4, so I decided to skip that in this video and just include a link below to the D4, so if you want to see how the face and arms, legs, and weapons were painted, you can check out that video. We are painting red here, which means that we are dealing with a very transparent, hard to work with color, and also means since we are layering here, we have to start with a dark red and slowly work our way up. We began with black red as an overall color, and then we are applying a mix of Carmine red and black to virtually the entire model. And from there, then we're going to start working on our highlights. As I said in the previous video, these silly little figures are actually very good for practicing your painting. One, because of all the flat sides. You have to have your paint thinned and applied properly to get a smooth transition on a flat surface. And secondly, because we have all these simple, essentially triangles that we're highlighting, it is a fairly simple shape to determine where our highlights and shades go. We're not bothered by any weird folds in a robe and straps, leather straps, and other bits and bobs. We just have panels. We have applied Carmine red, and now we are applying it again, the exact same color. The difference here is the first Carmine red was very thin. It went over almost the entire figure. The second layer here is thicker, and we are applying more just on the highlights. So we are getting two different highlights by using the same color, just by different application and by different opacity, or essentially the thickness of the layers that we are using. Moving up, adding some Vermillion to our Carmine red now, and you can see those panels are really going to start popping out very soon because we are working our way, I say towards the edges, but usually here I am highlighting the edges first and then working backwards, applying the highlights as needed. Again, we are highlighting towards the bottom of each panel, and for each additional highlight, working our way closer towards the edges. And so you're really going to start to see quite literally the shape of the D20 take shape as we go along here. Because we are using panel highlights here, we've somewhat abandoned our typical overhead highlighting process of painting highlights and shades as if the sun is directly over the figure. We are overruling that with the panel highlight. However, we're not completely abandoning it. So, for example, the bottom sides of our figure are not getting the same intensity of highlights as we are on the top. However, on the top of the figure, we still need some of that shade for our panel highlight. So it's getting a bit more contrast, a bit more shade on the top. And then on the bottom, we are actually putting less and keeping it darker. Mixing in a little bit of orange for our final highlights on the tips, and you can really see those edges standing out, and that's what the panel highlights give us. If we just did real basic on this thing and just did a base coat and called it a day, you wouldn't have that crisp edge look that we've gotten from using the panel highlights and using the layering technique, slowly working those highlights out towards those edges to make them really stand out. And again, very good practice using these figures for working on your highlighting and shading just for that reason. So we get that nice, clean, crisp edge on each one of those sides. Finishing off with a red ink glaze. This is going to give a nice, intense tone to our colors on our die. And it's going to bring down our highlights just a wee bit, but it's also going to add a little bit more richness to our shade colors and just make everything more cohesive. And even though we're going to flat varnish this at the end, it's still going to give us a real good intensity to our color. Finishing off with the numbers, we're going to go with yellow. However, because yellow is very transparent like red, we have to put down a base color first. I'm using Iraqi sand because it covers very well, and we're kind of applying it like a wash, letting it flow in the number. I have some glaze medium mixed in to clean, make it easier to clean up any mistakes, because it is kind of hard painting in these little cracks. And once that's dry, we can go ahead and put in our yellow. It may take 1 or 2 coats. And this is the exact same way you could paint any recessed item. So let's say you have some sort of sacred rock figure, inscribed with runes or sigils. Same thing, paint your rock gray or whatever, and then put down a whitish coat. It doesn't have to be pure white, it just has to be something that covers very well. Put that down as a wash, and then you could apply your whatever color you want to use, blue, green, what have you. But applying that white undercoat first under that simple base coat will make that color look much more intense than if you just put it in over gray. And there we go, there is our D20. Once again, if you want to see how to paint the rest of the figure, link is in below for the previous one. This one was painted the exact same way. And also, again, very good practice. It's kind of a fun, silly thing to paint, but also very good subject for practicing all your highlights and your shades and your layering. And if you don't have these, another good way to practice actually is just to paint, if you have them, dice. Just put a die onto a paint stand and paint it, and depending on how you mount it on the stand will affect the direction of all your highlights and shades. So it's actually very good practice. So if you don't have these, give painting dice a try. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.
Flag on the moon. How did it get there?